just like a celebrity.
If you like, R.D., you can take a pic. That's a picture of Cynthia.
Okay. All right, this is going to be a life history of Mr. and Mrs. Ben Gilbert, Fort Worth, Texas. Today is Thursday, the 3rd of October. Ben, where were you born at?
I was born in Fort Worth, Texas, August the 16th, 1912.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had 3 brothers. Leroy Gilbert, who has passed away about 10 years ago. Sol Gilbert, who resides in Denver. And Harold Gilbert, who was lost in World War II. My mother was Rose, or Rosa. She originally was Rosa, R-O-S-A, named after this lady you see in this picture, who was her grandmother, Rosa. And then she used the name Rose Hayes, H-A-A-S. They lived in Weatherford, Texas, where my maternal grandfather, William Hayes, had moved there in 1892.
Okay, Ms. Gilbert, if you don't mind, why don't you stand by Mr. Gilbert for a second so we can catch you in the camera, then you're welcome to sit and join with us. That'll make it,
That was country when he was 7 years of age, and then all the other members of the family were born in Fort Worth, Texas.
Was there only one Max Gilbert?
Only one.
I knew your father well as a child. Okay. When did your mother and dad pass away?
My mother died in 1953, and my dad in 1966.
I think you said this, but I want to make it clear in my mind. Were they both born in this country or in the old country?
My mother was born in Decatur, Texas in 1886. My father was born in the old country and came to this country when he was 7 years of age.
Do you know where he was born at? What country? Was it Russia or Lithuania? Or?
I think it might.
Russia.
It may have been Russia, but I'm not positive because the area between Poland and Russia, called the Pale, was where most of the Jewish people live. But I don't know the particular town where he might have been born.
Do you know what prompted them to come to Fort Worth?
L.G. Gilbert, the brother to my grandfather, Sam Gilbert, was already in Fort Worth, so Sam Gilbert came here. I think this might have been about 1892.
Mrs. Gilbert, what were your parents' names?
Rose Levinson Label
Okay.
and Ben Label.
That's
From Tarrant, Texas.
And your mother?
Rose Levinson from Fort Worth.
She was Fort Worth woman.
1895.
Okay. When she passed away, was she buried here in Fort Worth? Or?
Yes. I'll
And
show
your,
them sometime.
and your father too?
Yes.
Okay.
R.D. Her grandparents and my grandparents, the Sam Gilbert, are buried side by side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I will show them.
Yeah.
They picked out that property. His grandfather and my grandfather picked out that property. I was trying to tell Sarah Herman yesterday, did they buy it from Bailey?
Yeah, they bought it from Greenwood.
Oh, she said Greenwood. I said, no.
Well, Bailey.
I couldn't think of the name, and they were
Okay.
driving down Bailey. I said,
At
no, it
that
was
time,
Bailey.
they bought it from Greenwood.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
So that's the Abishon property. It's over
Well, you see, they first started with Peter,
on by
Peter Smith Hebrew Rest on
Okay, by the hospital.
Yeah, across from the hospital.
All right.
That was property given to them by John Peter Smith for a Jewish cemetery. And my grandparents on my mother's side are buried there.
That's at Hebrew Rest.
Yeah.
Okay. Your dad was in what kind of business?
Well, he was in a number of businesses, but he started in menswear, and then later they had a number of stores in ladies' ready-to-wear here. And after the Depression, he was a realtor. He sold life insurance. He just was in a number of different business activities. But he really never fully recovered from the Depression.
Well, I recall he used to come and kibitz with my dad. I was so they would talk about old times all the time. I remember that well. Now you said you still have one brother living.
Right.
And he lives where?
He lives in Denver, Sara Gilbert.
And what does he do?
He was with the Bureau of Reclamation, and he retired some years ago, and he's retired now.
And can you recall where you lived at as a child?
Yes. We lived first, possibly before I was born or about that time, on Granger Street, Sharpley Street. That's where the Burnett Plaza building is now.
If I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong,
But-
did Mr. Horn live also around there, had a long flowing beard?
Oh, I remember Mr. Horn, we thought he was a wild
Okay, you're right, okay.
And he scared the devil
You're
out
right,
of him.
yes, yes.
Great big fella,
Yeah.
and with a big beard.
Yes. Didn't he live over there on Cherry Street too?
Well,
Right.
nearly everybody was living from Henderson Street, south possibly, for, well, close to
Not
where
very
the Central High School is. Hardly anybody lived further south.
This is not a very good copy.
There's a big picture in there.
Original?
Yeah, it's in there.
All right, what is the earliest you can recall living there?
I don't recall there at all, but then we lived over, I think again on a Granger Street, about 2 blocks west of Jennings, because I first started at that 6th Ward School, I think it is, which would be a little bit further west. And then in 1919 or 1920, we moved out on Fairmount.
I'm going to ask you some questions about this shortly. How many different addresses did you live as a child?
3.
Fairmount was the last one?
The last
What
one.
address in Fairmount?
Beg pardon?
What address in Fairmount?
2211.
Do you recall what year that was?
About 1919 until after my father passed away in 1966.
Well, we married in 41, and he went to the Army first, then, and we never lived there. I'm talking about you.
Oh, well,
But
no,
he-
I didn't live there. I
His
thought he
father
meant the
lived there.
family.
Your family did?
Yes.
Okay, my dad lived on Hurley Street, wasn't too far away.
Yeah,
from there.
Hurley was
Next
1 block
Oh,
further
right.
west.
Yeah, I recall that.
I was trying to think of the 2 boys whose father worked for the bank, who
Right.
also lived on
There was
Hurley.
Mr. Schwartz, the tailor lived on,
He lived east.
right, yes, right, yeah.
That was, I know that.
Okay, that's
I
good.
can't think of the boy's first name, the Schwartz.
Uh,
David.
David Schwartz,
Yeah.
sure, that's right.
And,
Father's name was Joe.
yeah, Joe, yeah,
Right.
I was thinking of the 2 fellows that,
Mr. Ben, what was the primary language that your mother and dad spoke at home?
English.
No Yiddish? or
My
anything?
mother didn't, she was raised in Weatherford, Texas, and they didn't, and her parents were German. But now, Grandpa Gilbert, Sam Gilbert, he may have spoken or used Yiddish where he lived, but we did not in our home.
Did Max talk Yiddish?
No. He did not use
Ben
a
has
few
no
expressions.
Ben has no understanding of it, I don't either.
I thought Max did.
He may have used a few expressions, which he would have learned from his father.
All right, what did you do for entertainment as a kid? I'm serious, like, did you all play kick the can or?
You know, mostly we played baseball and swimming.
That was it?
Yeah.
So where'd y'all go to swim?
In the Trinity River first, and then later at the Forest Park pool.
Okay, the round pool in the Forest Park.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall what was the primary mode of transportation at that time?
Well, first there was the trolley cars, streetcars, and then later the buses. And the family, we had a car, an automobile.
And which, you went to 6th Ward Elementary School?
Yeah, then I went to E.M. Daggett. I only went to 6th Ward for about the first grade, and then we moved in 1919.
And you went to E.M. Daggett?
I went to E.M. Daggett.
And from E.M. Daggett
To
where?
Parker Junior High,
Okay.
and then to Central High School.
Okay. Well, Central High School was the one that's over on Cannon Street.
Right.
Okay. All right. When you were growing up as a child, what Adventist were you all affiliated with, the synagogue or the temple?
I would say principally the synagogue.
The synagogue.
Yeah.
Do you recall who the rabbi was at that time?
Well, there was Blumenthal, who,
Yeah, it's always Blumenthal.
and then later, as I recall, mostly Garcia came in pretty early.
Well, there was Grobart.
Yeah,
Well,
he
was here a long
Grobart,
time.
I'm trying to think.
He was here before Eric Carson.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot
Carson didn't come
Grobart.
here till after the
I
war.
forgot the Grobart.
Okay. All right.
Blumenthal married my parents, but he married most of the Jewish couples during his time here.
Now, some of the questions I might ask you might seem kind of bold if you don't want to answer.
Sorry.
When did y'all join the temple?
About the time we married.
Well, I was already a member before we were married. In the
I see
40s.
his mother's from a.
Because
Yeah, I think that's
I
And
was
so
teaching.
they always went to both.
I
when
was
went to
teaching Hebrew in 1935
At the temple.
at the temple
okay.
under
That's-
Murphy.
That's really what I was asking too. Yeah, in other words, you were working both.
Well, almost all of our family were buried in the Hava Shoal.
Yeah.
But, and for a while, I did work with Milton L. We were trying to improve the financial status of the synagogue, but the old folks didn't care to have that type of work done. And so I then began to gravitate toward the temple.
Still belongs to the synagogue. We still belong to the synagogue.
I figured you probably belonged to both. Is it tenure?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Y'all got a language on it. You want to tell them about your grandparents' house, about Harris Hospital?
Yes, everybody, let him ask his questions from the,
We'll get to
from
all
his
his
notes.
Now, did your grandparents didn't live here
Yes, which ones?
on your side?
Yes, they did. Sam Gilbert and Annie Gilbert lived here from about 1893 till their deaths.
Well, tell me, if you would, the various occupations of the Gilbert family in Fort Worth.
Well, L.G. Gilbert had a department store near the north end of the downtown area.
All right, that would be an uncle to you, right?
A great uncle.
Great uncle, okay.
Yeah. He was a brother to my grandfather, Sam Gilbert.
Okay.
Sam Gilbert had a men's store at the corner of 13th and Main for probably 50 years.
Okay. So, you know, what brought all the Gilbert family to Fort Worth?
Sam Gilbert came first, L.G. Gilbert came first, and I don't know what, it probably just is a peddler, that's how most of them got started.
Now, you mentioned that my brother worked for one of them, Max.
Max Moses worked for my father,
From here?
Max Gilbert, in the men's store at one
Oh,
time.
I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah, he also worked for Wolf and Clark,
Okay.
and then later, I think he worked with Ben Elman in Louisiana.
Oh, that was also part of the Wolf and Clark clan, you
Yeah,
can see.
that's right.
All right. Can you describe what your any knowledge of some of the old city leaders that were Jewish here in Fort Worth, the synagogue or the temple? The old leaders, people that were Jewish. That
Well,
were big
in
time.
the synagogue was, I guess, Israel Male, Salzburg, Levinson, her grandfather,
Excuse me, this Levinson.
Ben Levinson,
And who was his son?
Sydney.
Sydney.
Sidney was okay.
Wow.
Got that. All right.
And, trying to think, Goldstein, W. Goldstein was one of the
That's
leaders.
before my time.
Yeah. And, then in the temple, there was, Dan Levy and his father, I can't recall his name. Then later, you had I. Harwitz and Saul Brockman as leaders in the temple.
Meredith Carr.
Yeah,
I am God.
He was leader of the temple.
yeah.
What about Felix Bath? Was he?
I think he may have been the temple. He is buried in Hebrew Rest, as I recall.
But you don't
But
know
I
if
don't
he-
know his connection.
Okay.
It's before my time.
Oh, it is okay. We won't push that stuff. The earliest rabbis you can remember at the temple.
Well, G. George Fox was rabbi at the temple.
He was there for quite some time, wasn't he?
I think so.
Right.
Okay. When I've heard, he was well liked.
Mhm.
There was Rabbi Soskin after him.
He was I don't know whether he was after him, but he was
Exactly.
one of the rabbis.
Okay.
When
Soskin.
Barrett Soskin was still here.
Okay. And how about the synagogue?
Well, as I recall, you had Blumenthal and Graubarth and then Garsick, and in between, Abe Brockman also
Okay, I
conducted
remember.
services
I
at the
remember that.
synagogue.
Okay. Now, I'd like to know, if you don't mind telling me, what prompted you to go into law?
I don't know that anything prompted me. I was just interested in it, and
His uncle was a lawyer.
my uncle was a lawyer.
Which one was that now?
E.L. Gilbert.
E.L. Gilbert.
Yeah.
When did he die?
About 1952 or 3.
This wouldn't have been E.L. Gilbert, would it?
Or 56. Beg pardon?
Would that have been E.L. Gilbert?
Yeah, that's, let me see that.
Tall man?
Yes, that's
I
E.L.
remember him.
Yeah, you're right.
He was in his office when he got in law school. You couldn't get a job.
Okay, I remember E.L. Gilbert well. Okay. Now, you said he's the one that kind of guided you into going into law?
No, I just decided I liked it. Yeah, I went into it.
Where did you go to law school at?
At the well, I went part of the time to TCU and then down the University of Texas. I finished my academ at the University of Texas, went into the law school about 1931 or 2.
At the University of Texas?
Right.
Okay, and you finished, you said, in 32?
Well, I had 3 years of academ, and then I went into the law school and graduated in 35.
When you first started practicing, did you have your own office or were you?
No, I started with my uncle until the war. I was out for about 4 years.
Yeah.
Then I came back, and in 1950, I set up for myself.
Okay, so that pretty well takes care of your tenure in law.
Right.
How about Burton? Your
Bert,
son?
he got out of school. He came into our office.
Okay.
We were then 4 lawyers altogether.
Are you specializing, or did you specialize in any particular type of law?
Well, we handle generally civil practice and specialized in bankruptcy
Okay.
and creditor rights.
Ms. Gilbert, would you like to add anything to this? Seriously?
I mean, for 55 years.
Yes.
Do I have anything to say? I'm a whole nother subject. But, what can we say, since 1930? We married in 41.
Rabbi Blumenthal married you then?
No,
No,
Garst.
Grobart.
Grobart did?
Yeah.
Okay.
My father and mother had moved from Terrell, Texas in the Depression to Denison, Texas. And, we married there, Rabbi Gilbert went there. And, you know, I was always in and out of Fort Worth because my mother was from here.
Yeah.
And then she came back here when my father died at age 42. And for Burton. No, she came after Burton. My father died right before Burton was born.
Or do you have any
48.
brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have a sister who was married all the years and lived in Corsicana, but she and her husband had lived 25 years in Phoenix, in the cotton business. And I lost my brother from Houston. I mean, he lived in Houston.
We're talking primarily you and your sister, both remaining your son's family.
Well, and Faye, I mean, cousins.
Yeah, we're
No,
remaining.
not too many cousins. Faye,
Yeah.
and there was Irvin and Melvin.
Okay.
And my Aunt Julia Swartz, they lived in Sherman after they married. She has one son who lives in Philadelphia, Ben Swartz. He has two sons up there. And Uncle Sidney had, Leon Lurie, if you know him.
Oh,
is his,
sure. Lion
was
Lurie?
her son.
Yeah.
Lion, yes.
They were. Yeah.
I think very much of them. I still keep up with Helen, his wife.
Good.
Uncle Sidney's wife. She's at Oak Park. Talked to her the other day.
Well, I think we're gonna wipe this out because I don't want the man here getting tired, or you either. I want to thank you both immensely.
Aren't you nice?
I do appreciate it.
Aren't you nice to do this?
No, ma'am, it's something I enjoy doing. You will get a copy of this.
Okay, when Ben was in and out of the hospital, you know, after all this, his grandparents' home backed up to where the Harris Hospital is now,
Okay, I know.
665th Avenue.
Old
Right.
Jewish neighborhood, yes, ma'am.
And tell them about the lot in back of it, why you didn't want me paying they would charge me to pay the
Oh,
parking
my
lot.
grandfather, in about 1920, Jesse Jones wanted to build a medical arts building where his home was, on Cherry Street. So he put it up, Jesse Jones or his representative put it up to my grandfather that it was a community project and would he sell. So the reason my grandfather originally bought there was it was within walking days of both his store and the synagogue. At any rate, he agreed, but that's why I think this picture was taken at about the time he was ready to move. And he built a home at 660 Fifth Avenue, and he had a half a block. The other half of the block was, I think, first a home and then the Harris Clinic. There was a clinic at the north end. The west end of my grandfather's lot was probably 100 by 150 or more. And the Methodists started to build the hospital across the street, and they wanted to put a sawmill on his lot. So they came to him and said, we want to put a sawmill on this lot to build a hospital and rent the lot from you, and we'll pay $400 a month rent, which in those days was a pretty good sum.
It sure was.
And my grandfather said, I would not charge a hospital, and you're welcome to use the lot. They stayed 4 years, and they ran out of money, and all they had was a shell there for a number of years till Dr. Harris took over. And he is the one that raised the money to complete
Harris
Hospital. And then when I was overseas at the time, my grandmother passed away up in 44. And that left the big house vacant, and it was a big home. My dad went to Tal Terrell, who was the business manager of Harris Hospital, and he said, Miss Terrell, my mother has passed away, the house is vacant, and we're going to offer the property for sale. Would the hospital be interested. And the reply he got was, we have all the real estate we'll ever need.
They've been buying up land ever
So
since.
Dr. Furman bought it for a clinic, and then later the hospital paid him twice the amount that he had paid for the house.
I heard the name Furman an awful lot.
And he had a clinic there.
Yes. Was his name Dr. Tuman, ring a bell with you?
Tubman.
Tuman. T-U-M-I-N. Isidore Tuman.
Well, no, I didn't know he was
I know
a
the name.
doctor. That name sounds familiar.
He was a GP and practice service in the mid-30s in the athlete Fort Worth.
I remember that name, but I didn't know what it is.
Was there any intermarriage between the Gilbert family and the Antle family?
Well, Ben's father's cut, the L.G. Gilbert family. One of
J.M.
theirs-
Gilbert married,
J.M. Gilbert married Mamie Atwell.
maybe that one.
Now, that was at the L.G. Gilberts.
Yeah. And he died in his 30s after a tonsillectomy. Huh?
I don't know.
This is a Guardian's picture.
This is
That's
this
correct.
is the Sam Gilbert family about 1919, 1920.
This is the Guardian's picture. I think we're gonna wipe it off, Mr. Jack.
Just whenever.
Okay. This picture of Mr. E.L., I remember him well. Tall man.
Today, when you look back, he seemed tall then, he wasn't that tall.
Well,
He must have been
I'm
5'10".
I'm judging from a child,
5'10".
You're right, yeah.
That was tall for them.
That's nice. This is good.
But, on print, but when Ben was in the hospital in and out, also at Harris, the whole thing, and I was fussing about how much it cost to park in that building where that lot was. I'd come back, making conversation, tell Ben, what are you gonna do? So he says, they don't have any business charging you, they owe us 4 years. Rent right where that parking garage is, the one on the east.
I was telling my friend here, I was in the hospital 3 days getting this pacemaker put in. I said, guess how much it costs to have this thing done?
$2,500.
Are you kidding?
Would you be 22,000?
Gee,
For 3 days?
what for?
I had no idea.
Which hospital was this?
Harris.
He
Well,
mostly went to
the
All
answer
Saints.
is